Okay, Jen, you left me with two super complicated problems, but I think that we can manage it. The first thing you would want to do anytime you're dealing with those square roots, the radicals, is try and reduce them down. So I'm going to jot down our original problem. It's going to be 30 times the square root of 40 minus square root of 60. We want to reduce down what's inside here as much as we can. So we're going to start with that square root of 40 and factor it as much as we can. We know 40 could be 4 times 10, right? And it's still under the little square root, but it could be 4 times 10. But those can be broken down too, right? So we could do 4 is 2 times 2, and 10 is 5 times 2. That's all still hanging out underneath of our square root. When you have the square root and you factor everything down, any number that you have 2 of, 2 2's right there, can be moved to the outside of your radical. So we're going to put a 2 on the outside, and that'll leave us with 5 times 2 on the inside. Now, we don't have anything else that matches underneath, so we can multiply that back out. $40 is equal to 2 times the square root of 10. Let's see what 60 is. We take the square root of 60. It could be 6 times 10. Still under the square root. And it can be broken down again into, 6 breaks down into 2 times 3. 10 breaks down into 5 times 2. And if we look, we have 2 2's underneath of there, so we can take them out again, because everything was still under the square root, right? Square root, 2 similar numbers, 2 and 2, so we can move a 2 to the outside. 2 times the square root of 3 times 5. We don't have any more that are the same underneath the square root, so we can multiply it out again. 2 times 15. Now, since the numbers in front of our radical are the same, we can go ahead and move them to the outside of our parentheses. We can divide that 2 from both of those. And it leaves us with 2 times the square root of 10 minus the square root of 15. Now, that's as simple as it can get, we can finally do that first math from the very top of this. First problem was 30 times, and we're going to put our new simplified answer into there. It's going to be times 2 times the square root of 10 minus the square root of 15. Once it's simplified, it makes it a lot easier. It doesn't matter what that 10 and 15 are, what those numbers are under the square root. We're only worried about the numbers out in front, the 2 and the 30. So when we multiply 2 times 30, we get 60. We already know we simplified everything that was underneath of there. So our final answer is 60 times the square root of 10 minus the square root of 15. Now, once we've figured out all that factoring stuff, it makes that other problem a lot easier, because there's weird things when you divide by radicals. Our other problem is 30 divided by square root of 40 minus square root of 60. Right? We already figured out how to simplify these guys, so we can change what's on the bottom there to 2 times the square root of 10 minus the square root of 15. We know that's the simplified version of what was on our denominator. That right there, we already simplified. We know it equals that. So now we just have to take 30 and divide it by that. No problem, right? Well, I know we can simplify this a little bit more because on the outside we've got a 30 and we've got a 2. So we know when we have numbers that are divisible, we can reduce that down some. So we're going to divide the top and the bottom by 2, and we now have 15 over top of the square root of 10 minus square root of 15. Because we divided top and bottom by 2, got rid of this 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 30 divided by 2, 15. So that's our new problem. But we can reduce that down even further, because anytime you have a radical on the bottom, you can multiply the whole thing by the radical over the radical. Okay, that's confusing. But that's how we get rid of a radical in the bottom. Okay? We're going to multiply the whole thing by square root of 10 minus the square root of 15 over the square root of 10 minus the square root of 15. Okay, so we took that denominator, we multiplied the whole problem by that denominator over top of the same one, okay? It's the same thing. This could be an x, this could be a z, this could be a square root of 747. It doesn't matter, we'd do the same thing. It would be x over x, or 700, square root of 700 something over the square root of 700 something. We just took the whole square root on the bottom. Now why do we do this? We can now get rid of all those square roots. If you multiply a square root times itself, you can take all the square root symbols away. Because the square root of 10 times the square root of 10 is always going to be 10. Square root of 15 times the square root of 15 is always going to be 15. Multiplied, the entire thing times itself, you can rewrite the whole thing without the square root. So that's going to be our new bottom. Our new top is going to be the number we had, 15, times our square root of 15, square root of 10 minus square root of 15. So we now have this, which looks so much simpler, right? Almost there, though, because we know we can take 10 minus 15, and it leaves us with a negative 5 on the bottom. 15 times square root of 10 minus square root of 15. We just moved our 10 minus 15, turned it into negative 5, because 10 minus 15 is negative 5. We have our numbers again. Outside of the square root mess that we have inside of there, we have a 15 and a negative 5. 15 divided by negative 5, we can reduce that down by dividing the top and the bottom by 5. It's going to be a 1 on the bottom, negative 1 on the bottom, and a 3 on the top. Anything divided by 1 is itself, so we can drop that on the bottom thing and just do negative 3 times square root of 10 minus square root of 15. Okay, I ran out of room on my board. I'm going to do those last couple steps again. Make sure you got it. 30 over that was our simplified problem in the beginning. We can multiply the top and the bottom by 2. End up with 15 over square roots. This was the tricky part. When you multiply, when you have that radical on the bottom, you want to multiply the whole problem by that radical so you can get rid of it on your bottom part. Times. Multiplying that whole problem by the same thing just means we can take the square roots off the bottom. Have 10 minus 15 as our denominator, and 5 times our ugly square roots on the top. Multiplied out. We can reduce it again. Because we have a 15 and a 5, we end up with 3, sorry, times the square root of 10 minus the square root of 15. I hope I didn't confuse you more. Questions, send them my way. I hope this helps a little bit. If you want to try and FaceTime later, go ahead. You can hit Bella's iPad. I love you. Good luck.